Hi everyone, it's Bethany. I am here. I want to call this a follow-up to my Where Do I Start video that I've done about choosing or about setting up your first planner. But actually, it's more of like a prequel because I realized after I finished that video that I kind of missed a really important part. I mean, we talked about picking a binder. As one of the three things that you need on that video, but I don't think I really gave it the attention that it deserves. So we're calling this Where Do I Start? The prequel, What Size? Okay, so plus all good series need a prequel, right? And there's going to be, I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to call this, right? There's going to be a third video in this series. I don't know if that makes it part 2 or part 3. Anyway, whatever, I will figure all that out. This we're going to talk about today is now our prequel. And it's going to be about how do I choose what size of a planner that I want. I'm giving you just a glimpse of my planner for no other reason that I thought it was better to look at than my old tablecloth here. So, yeah. And again, I'm going to follow, I mean, these talking ones, I apologize. I know that they're kind of boring to look at. I'm hoping that you can just sort of close your eyes and listen to my voice, and that I've heard that it's a very relaxing, easy to listen to voice. So let's just go with that, right? Just relax, take a minute. This is your time. Okay, now I'm done with that. I will stick to planners and not into relaxation techniques. Okay, so today, what we're going to do is try to answer a few questions. I'm going to pose some questions in the hope that they will help you to decide what size binder you need. I think that this is it is basically your first step, right? When I talked about needing a binder before, I didn't really talk about what size. So the first question. Oh wait, before we get to their questions, I just want to take a second to talk about the sizes available because I know that this can be confusing too if you're totally new to this planner world. And making it even more confusing is that every size has like 6 different names. It depends on what part of the world you live in. It depends on where you buy your stuff from. It depends on what brand you end up with, that kind of stuff. Everybody has to call everything slightly different and whatever. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a rundown of what the differences are. And I'm focusing on 3 main sizes. There are smaller ones than what I'm talking about, but I think in terms of anyone's sort of main planner, these are the 3 sizes that they're probably using. And I just didn't want this to get as, I'm trying to keep this from getting as complicated as it possibly could. It could take us all day to get through everything. So I'm going to start from largest to smallest, and essentially I'm going to try to cover everything. Now, I might make a few little, I might leave something out or make, whatever. Just give me a little bit of grace here and just stay with me, okay? So the largest size is known as either an A4 or a letter size, and it is essentially 8 point something by 11-ish kind of size. So a letter size paper for those of us in North America, I think, and again, I'm not even sure which parts of the world use which sizes. I just know I'm in North America and this is what we use. Anyway, so a letter size is 8.5 by 11. An A4 size is 8.3, so slightly less wide, by 11.7. So it's actually a little bit longer. Okay. If you're buying, a 3-ring binder, so your general everyday 3-ring binder, there's my hands, you always have to have my hands dancing around the screen. If you're buying sort of your regular back to school binder, that is the size that we're talking about here. If you're buying I believe if you use the disc size, the disc bound planters, oh my gracious, planners, the full-size one would be this size that we're talking about, okay? It's basically, whatever you consider to be a full-size piece of paper, that is the size we're talking about. The next size down from that, you get into your A5 / desk size / half letter / ARC Junior / class, all kinds of names. It is essentially half of the pages that we were just talking about. So if you have, if we were talking about letter size before, you just cut it in half. And that's the size that's remaining the same. So an A5 is half of an A4, and a desk size or the half letter is half of the letter. So again, those sizes are slightly different because when the bigger sheet is slightly different. So a half letter is 8.5 by 5.5. An A5 is 5.8, so slightly wider, and 8.3, so slightly shorter, if that makes sense. But essentially, you know, relatively the same size. In the disc-bound planners, I believe that this is now your junior size or your half size again. Okay. Then the third size, and that's actually, okay, so actually I guess I can show you what that one is. That's what I have here. This is a DayTimer desk size. You can kind of get a sense of how big your pages you're looking at there. Okay. This one is the next size down. And this one's a bit more complicated because it's not as depend on the original size of your paper, right? This is just you know, small pages. Let me see if I can just find something to kind of show you here. Small pages. It is generally 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. Franklin, you'll notice if you're looking at it, we're like, well, there's a lot of space inside of a binder. That's because I have a Franklin-Covey binder, which actually Franklin-Covey inserts are called compact when they're the small ones like this, and they are actually slightly wider and slightly taller. But essentially, it's still the same size we're talking about this. And obviously, I'm using personal size inside a Franklin-Covey binder. You know, you can always, generally speaking, you can always hold smaller sheets inside of a large binder, obviously, right? Just not always the other way around. Okay, so those are your 3 basic sizes. And that's all I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so moving on to our very first question. The first question to ask yourself is, what do you want a planner to do for you? Okay, what type of information is it going to hold? What is missing from your life or your organization right now that you think this planner is going to fill? Why do you want a planner? You know, this is basically your first question. Is it something you plan on using? And it could be a combination of things, right? This isn't just like I'm giving some options. It's not just pick one of these options. It could be all of these and more. Is it something to track events, appointments, just that calendar aspect of it? Is it something to hold tasks and to-dos? Is it to hold the daily ones? Is it hold just, you know, a general master list for your entire home? Is it to hold both? You know, that kind of thing. Is it someplace where you want to store information? Is it someplace, you know, is it going to be your go-to book where, you know, everything's going to be in there? These are the things to think about because that's going to obviously affect the size that you pick. The second one is, where do you want your planner to live? Where is it going to spend all its time? How is it going to travel? If it travels, what is it going to travel in? So is it going to sit on your desk all the time? Is this a desk book that doesn't leave the house? Is it something that will stay with you sometimes? So maybe you'll take it to work. Maybe you'll take it to school. But when you go out, excuse me, shopping, for example, or you go out to a movie or you go out with, you know, running errands, it's not going to be with you at those times. Or is it, pardon me, is it something that you will take specifically when you know you will need it? You know, maybe if you know that you're going to be waiting for, you know, you've that one doctor that's always a really long wait, so you want to take it as you know you'll have an hour sitting in the waiting room with something, you know, that kind of thing. So is it a sometimes with me book? The third one is it going to be with you always? And if it's going to be with you always, what are you going to be carrying it around in? Is it going to be going in your purse? If so, how big is your purse? If you use more than one purse, what is your smallest purse? You know, those kind of things. What are you going to carry this around in? Now, here's my little warning when thinking about this. And I bring this up because I have actually seen people talk about this on, you know, some of the Facebook groups, that when you're picking your first planner and you've never really had a use for a planner before, or never really used one that much, you think, well, you know what, I think I'll just sit on my desk, and that's fine. So it starts sitting on your desk, and then you find that it's getting more and more and more useful, and you're putting more and more things in it. And then you realize that it would be helpful. You start taking it places. Anyway, long story short, you want it to be more portable than you ever dreamt you would be. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying that you know, you can't choose desk only as your option. I'm just saying, keep in the back of your head that you might change your mind. If you think that portability might, you're not really sure, well, I think I'd like to have it with me, but, I'd be fine, it'd be okay to leave it. Then I might err towards the portability part. And the portability doesn't also mean smaller necessarily, right? If the places you're going to be taking it, let's say the places you're going to be taking are work or school, and you always have a bag, a backpack or a messenger bag or a briefcase or something that this, a large book would easily fit in, then portability doesn't necessarily mean small. If you're trying to get something that will go in any purse that you own, then obviously smaller is probably more important. If you are a tote bag kind of purse woman, then, then obviously, that doesn't necessarily have to be smaller. Am I making any sense whatsoever? I feel like this is the type of video that's just going to be talking around in circles, and I apologize for that. Hopefully you'll still be able to grab a few things out of it. Okay, so the third question is, what kind of information do you want to record every day? And how much do you want to have on hand at any given time? So if you are just looking to use this as a calendar, just wanting to track events and appointments and making sure that you don't forget about anything, then you may find that a big binder actually just has too much space. Your pages are mostly empty. You're jotting maybe 3 or 4 things down a week. You really don't need this much space. If on the other hand you want to include your daily schedule and your daily task list, then you may find that you just need more space. Also, if you want to keep a lot of other information in here as well, in that first question we talked about what do you want it to do for you. If you came up with wanting to store a lot of information and wanting to have that with you all the time, then that might affect obviously the size of the pages and therefore the size of book that you need. Now, a couple of things about this is that a lot of info, just because you choose, I want to have a lot of info available, does not necessarily mean you need a large planner for a couple of reasons. One, there are often solutions and compromises that you can make to make a smaller binder work for you. For example, I used to want to have an entire year's worth of inserts with me at all times. I'd like to be able to, if it's March and I hear about an event that's happening in October, I want to be able to go to October and write it in on that day. My inserts, however, are I call them bulky. Could also sort of call them chunky. But anyway, this is a full week here. It actually takes 9 pages double-sided to make a full week. In my binder with everything else that I also wanted to carry around, here's my notes section. Get an idea. I carry a lot of notes with me. Putting this all together meant I keep about 5 weeks, maybe 6 at a time of my weekly inserts. And then I keep all my calendars. So I have all my calendars through to December. And if I come up with that event in October, I would just turn to October's calendar and mark it in on this day or make a note of it somewhere, else, so that when I get to putting October's inserts in, I have the information here and I can move it over. So for example, I actually have an event already here in October that I've been able to put in, but that's, the compromise that I made was not being able to have all these weeks in here. The other reason that a bigger binder doesn't necessarily mean, more information doesn't necessarily mean a bigger binder is that a bigger binder doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to hold more pages. So for example, if we just look at this sideways, now this is a big notepad at the back, but if you just look at the stack of pages that I have in here and the stack of pages, and let's see if I can get these both in here, pardon me, maybe I'll turn them this way, right? So you can see the stacks are actually fairly similar because the ring size is similar, right? So if it's actually your ring size that's going to affect how many actual sheets that you can hold, then going up to a bigger binder with the same ring size doesn't mean that you're going to be having any more space for extra sheets. Okay. However, obviously it means that you will be able to record more per sheet. So the type of information that you want to, keep track of is on the actual sheet itself, which we're going to look at here in a second, then that's when a larger binder might come into play. Okay. So let's actually take a look at that now. So what I've done is I've pulled out 2 of what I consider to be fairly popular inserts, and I've looked at the same day on each of those inserts. Now, I'm trying to keep the scope of this video from getting too ridiculous. We're already at the 15-minute mark. My goodness, how does that happen? So it's not about talking about inserts. I could talk about inserts for ages. Maybe I'll do a video just about inserts, although that's kind of already been done. So anyway, but I'm trying to keep this on track. The point is not so much the inserts themselves as it is just giving you a comparison of the type of information that you can record from one to the other. So I've looked at daily pages and I've looked at week on 2 pages because, like I said, I think these tend to be, if I had to guess, and this is totally not research, this is just off the top of my head, I would think that a week on 2 pages is probably one of the most common, if not the most common insert that people use. And then it's almost like if you can't fit onto a week on 2 pages, then you go find something else. It's almost like you kind of start there. I think because often planners that's what they come with. Because an entire year will usually fit in most binders that way. Anyway, so I wanted to look at those, but I also wanted to look at a daily. Okay, so, and I've printed out in those 3 sizes that we talked about before, the personal, the A5, and the A4, or the personal half. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get to all that. Okay, you're with me, right? You all with me? Perfect. Okay, so let's look at our first day here. Now, let me see if I can zoom here a little bit. Okay. Whoop, sorry about that. I guess that didn't really do much. But anyway, okay, so all these inserts I've just printed off of filofaxy.com. The only thing I will say about inserts is that these just happen to be the ones I grabbed. You might say, well, you know what? If I got one that was a little bit different, then it would work in this one. And absolutely, right? Like absolutely, there may be an insert out there that's like mine, right? In the smaller size, I was able to pick an insert that I liked that worked better. And maybe neither of these is the right one for you. It's just about showing the comparison, okay? Also, I wasn't super careful about my printing and my printer setup and stuff. I feel like I have a lot of margin space, but I think I also cut this a little. Anyway, the sizes is still relative, right? So it's still about comparing the information that you can keep. So this is my schedule here, my tasks, and then I've used the space for journaling. The green, if you can tell, I'm not sure what this is going to show up in the end, but the green is actually my menu. This is how I meal plan in my planner, is I put it right in on the schedule of approximately when I'm going to eat it. So that's what that is. So you'll notice I've been able to fill everything in here. I've got a couple of events, lunch and errands and dropping my son off and picking him up, and then family movie night going on here. And generally speaking, the space is fairly filled, like in terms of the column. The same over here, laundry, call the doctor. I've had to use 2 lines for calling the doctor for this one task because I wanted to remember what I'm calling the doctor for. My errands, I've kind of, written them as small as possible, used a little bit of shorthand, fit them in here. And then for my journaling, it's just a couple of sentences, kind of hitting the highlights of our day. Now, if I move on to, here's the A5 size of this. I'm going to see if I can go back out. Whoops, wrong way, sorry. The A5 size, you can see, and I'm sorry, I guess if I go like this, you can kind of see the whole thing. So, in the schedule, you'll notice now, where I used to fill the column, now there is a bit of room. This one used to take up 2 lines. I've been able to fit all in one now. My meal, I've been able to write out a bit more information on here. The same thing, I was able to put the doctor all in one line. I was able to include a bit more information in my errands, like what type of bill it was, what type of, the fact that it's the swimming forms. I have the type of memory that I need to include as much information as possible. Plus, I tend to be making my to-do list in advance, so this might have been, 3 or 4 days ago that I wrote this in. I want to remember what exactly I was talking about. And obviously, too, if you look at comparing the journaling, I was able to do more and write it a bit bigger. This is where the size of your handwriting can come into play. If you look at these tiny little boxes and you just think, oh my goodness, there is no way that my big handwriting, sorry, get it to focus here. I guess it just isn't going to. It's not going to fit in those boxes, then, that might help your decision to go to something a little bit larger. Speaking of larger, no, I know this is not even going to begin to fit in the screen here. So this is what that same page looks like on a letter size. So you can see it's quite large because your half size is actually going this way, right? So it's not like you're cutting it in half like vertically. So you get a lot of more space. So now, I mean, I could be writing in all kinds of information over here. My errands have everything, you know, even including where I want to pick up the, you know, the milk and the bread. I probably could have, if I, you know, put swim registration, I probably could have put where I needed to drop that off if I needed to remember that. I've put in what it is about the appointment that I need to do, that I need to reschedule. And then, I'm sorry, this is going to be sideways, so not really, but the point isn't really to read what I'm writing, but just to see. So, and quite big lettering, I've actually been able to include more information down here in my journal. Okay. So let's move those aside for a second, and let's look at the week on 2 pages. Okay, so a week on 2 pages in the personal size looks something like this. Okay, so in this layout, you do have, I mean, there's a bit of room in the margins you see up top. This is an empty block for, you know, it's just called this week. Could be lots of things going there. And then you have even spaces for your Saturday and Sunday. Often that will not be the case. You may have a split box for your weekends. So keep that in mind too. But anyway, okay. So I've tried to fit everything in on here. I've done my schedule and my meal plan, and then my to-dos and my errands, and I managed to fit. Now, it was actually by accident that I left out one of my tasks over, or one of my scheduled my 2 o'clock pick up my son here. I probably still could have fit that in. I would have to squish in and still been able to manage my menu down here. Now you'll notice I've only done dinner, and I've done it in like shorthand. I didn't even put in that there was rolls. I'm going to just remember that there were rolls. And yeah, and obviously no place to journal on here. Okay. Going to the next size up, the A5 week on 2 pages looks like this. Excuse me. Now this one is, again, slightly different. You know, this one didn't have lots of boxes. This one's a bit more structured, but same idea. You have room up here to write. You also have this big margin up here that you could be writing some stuff in. But in terms of your actual day, to get this to fit, let's go like this. Okay. So I managed to fit all 5 of my events in here. I did breakfast and dinner. Now, the reason lunch isn't on here is because I was actually going out for lunch. I might have to kind of squeeze if I was trying to do all 3 in there. And then my to-dos and my errands fit fine over here. Still, really, though, no place to journal on this size. Then we get to the full-size one. Okay, so I'm not going to try to show you both, you know, the whole week. But you can see it's got tons of room. So up here, you'd have room to put your weekly thing, and there's a big notes section here. And then this is what your day is going to look like here. So I was able to fit again. So my 6, I could even have a bit of space in here. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner all included. My to-dos, my errands, and then I actually was able to put a couple of notes, just 2 sentences about my day. Now, obviously, if my to-do list or my errands had been a bit longer, I might have had to give up that space, but I just wanted to show you what can fit in this box. Okay, now, I've kind of mentioned this. I just want to touch on it just for a second again, that there are, you know, the size of your inserts is not also the most important question, right? You notice it didn't even kind of make one of the 3 questions, what size inserts do I want? Because there's often things, you know, kind of workarounds that you can do. A lot of people who use a week on 2 pages in the smaller size, or even in the bigger size, will include another page in the middle like this. You know, maybe this will just be your appointments and your tasks will go in the middle. Or maybe you won't try to fit your menu on here, your menu will go in the middle. Or maybe both, you know, you'll have one sheet for your menu and one sheet for your tasks. Maybe you'll use some of these boxes, you know, this will be your menu up here, or this will be your journal for the week. You know, you just do one sort of summary of the week. There are ways, you know, if you decide that you want a personal size, there are ways to work around. Or again, you might do that compromise thing, go with something like what I'm using. You know, if you want, I picked these because I wanted lots of information. So, you know, I have basically a day on 2 pages and a weekly up at the top, but I can't hold a lot of them. But there's options, I guess, is my whole point. Okay. So it's not, you know, so it's not, I guess the size of the pages that you, or the amount of information and it's fitting on a page isn't necessarily, you know, a deal breaker in terms of the size of binder that you want. But I wanted to bring it up because I wanted you to be able to see as you're thinking about, what kinds of things might I want. Oh, right, something else for you to look at. Okay, here you go. For the cover, so pretty. Let's look inside. Got a few more things to look at. Okay, so the other thing when you're looking at your inserts is to think about decoration. Is decorating your planner something that you want to do? And if so, to what extent? And that's more about picking your inserts, possibly, but also just knowing that the bigger your inserts, the more room you're going to have. If you're kind of curious about that, you're not really sure, just search for some decoration videos of the different sizes. They're out, there's tons and tons and tons of them out there. You'll get to see what people are able to accomplish with the size inserts that they have. But I bring it up just because I don't want you to pick a personal size binder if your hope is having, a highly decorated page and still fitting lots of information in, and then realizing at the end that that's just not possible. So I want you to think about your decorating right up front. And maybe you're thinking, going, decorating? Why would I even So don't worry about that. Or go, search a few videos about decorating, and then you might become a convert. Anyway, just throwing it out there. Okay, so just to recap, sorry, the 3 questions that we've asked today are, what do you want a planner to do for you? Okay, what is the actual bones of the planner? What is going to be inside of it? And how is it going to help you? Because that's really the whole point, right? How is this going to help you? Where do you want your planner to live? Is it going to stay at home? Is it going to come with you? And if it comes with you, what is it going to come with you in? And then finally, what information do you want to record every day? What do you want your days to look like? And what do you want to be able to keep with you at all times? Okay. Now, the bottom line is, if you're completely new to this, you're thinking, I have no clue. I don't really know. Or maybe you kind of have an idea. Jot some stuff down. Seriously, maybe even almost like your pros and cons list or something. The pros to having a smaller one and the cons to having a smaller one. But basically just weighing your options, looking at what's available. A lot of people, when they're doing their videos, they put the size of their binder they're talking about in the title, so it's easy to search for the specific sizes. Just look at how people have theirs laid out. That might give you some help. But basically, you just need to weigh your options and then make your educated guess, right? If you've watched my other video first, you've heard me say it's not about getting it perfect the first time. If you're really not sure, start with an inexpensive option. Try the cheapest binder that you can find and print out a few free inserts, give them a try, see if that's going to work, and then move on to something a bit more permanent. Or, if you think you know what you want, you've looked and you saw, I saw this person's binder and I think that layout will work fantastically for me, so I'm going to copy that. That's fantastic. If you do that and then you find out, oh my goodness, this isn't working, but I've put all this money into it. Don't fret, there are still options. You might be able to find solutions to what's not working and keep your system, but fix it, add those pages into the middle of your sheets, or, print out some extra pages or something, right? There might be a solution. Or, the bottom line is there's tons of swap and sell groups all over Facebook. You might, or eBay, you might be able to sell it or just swap it with somebody for something that you think will work better. So don't worry, and don't let the fact that making a decision is so difficult stop you from making a decision, okay? It's just about looking at what your options are and making your best guess. Now, I hope, I'm sure I'll probably think of things after I'm done, even though I, really try to remember everything. I hope that I've covered anything that I could think of to help you make this decision. If you still have questions, I am by no means trying to pretend that I am the expert on planners, but if you have questions, put them down below. I might be able to answer them. Somebody else might be able to answer them. If you have a blog post or a video on this topic that you think other people might be able to get some more insight from, please link that below too. I'd love to see it, and I'm sure that that they would love to as well. I think that's it. I hope that I've helped. Thanks for watching. Bye.